Hey, what's up, guys? So today I want to talk about the Acid Dev vlog that came out a few hours ago. This is going to be round two of these vlogs. It's about itemization, and this is going to be the part one of the answers because there's going to be a few more parts because there's only about 6 questions to answer here on this blog, but they definitely give some pretty interesting information here. So what we got here is we got 3 of the game designers who are going to be answering some questions. We got Wyatt Cheng, who is a senior technical game designer. We got Travis Day. He seems to be the new guy to the team, maybe replacing Jay Wilson, and he's a game designer. And we got Don View, who's associate game designer. So we got 3 of these game designers here, and they definitely give some pretty interesting stuff in this blog. The funny thing is that I just recorded this whole blog, recorded my thoughts, recorded my opinions, and all that stuff, and then I re-listened to the recording, and I ended up leaving my fan on, my ceiling fan, so all you could hear is like this kind of like, like a lot of wrestling and that sort of thing. And yeah, it was really bad. So I'm gonna re-record this. Hopefully it goes as good as I did on the first one, but we'll see how it goes here. So I'm gonna read over some of the questions here, read over some of the answers, and kind of reflect some of my own thoughts here. So we're gonna go over the first question here, and the first question is: will all legendaries found in Inferno roll level 63 base stat values, armor and like basically armor and DPS values, and eye level 63 non-base affixes stat values? And so the answer to that is yes, our plan is to handle legendary items in similar fashion to how we handle rare items right now. Legendary items will roll at a level equal to the creature that dropped it. So this means that in addition to legendary stats rolling at the monster level, their base item stats will also roll at this level. So right now, how rares work is they don't roll this way. They instead their affixes roll at the level of the monster, but their base armor and weapon damage do not. So they're going to be changing that for legendaries so that both the base armor values and damage values, as well as the non-base affixes stat values, will be rolling at eye level 63 or whatever the monster you killed was. So that's pretty interesting. It'll definitely be a big boost to some of the lower level legendary, so that'll be pretty awesome. Which kind of brings me on to the next question: was does this mean that every set and legendary item will have a chance of dropping in Inferno? So yes, legendary and set items will be valid drops from monsters at whatever point in the level range they were first introduced. So if you have a level 16 ring or something like that, and as long as you're above the level 60 or 16 monster level, it'll have a chance to drop, even if you're farming in like Inferno doing eye level 63 monsters, and that stat or that item that's a level 16 item will be able to drop from Inferno in level 63 zones and have 63 base armor values and damage values, as well as base or as well as non-base affixes. So that'll be pretty awesome. I think we'll see some of the low-level legendaries that are going to be buffed up because of about that. And the answer they kind of give to this, which I basically just talked about, but they've they've seen some people kind of speculate whether or not does this mean like the experience bonus on the Leorcs will increase? And the short answer to that is yes. And so basically, some legendary and set items will scale ultimately, or scales will ultimately depend on the bonus itself. So some bonuses, such as the plus XP bonus on the Leorcs, will scale equally from level 1 to 60, but on the other hand, some things like proc effects that generate pets or procs that deal damage effects don't always scale at higher levels as well. So some of those won't scale as well, but some like just the plus bonuses will definitely scale quite a bit. So we're going to see some of the low level legendaries and set items become very good, and I'm really curious to see how good some of those legendaries and sets are going to be. So that's some pretty interesting stuff right there. The next question we have here is: will there be any way for players to have some control over the item stats, such as implementing the Mystic? So the Mystic basically was an enchanter that was going to be able to enchant your items, and like the beta is basically when they had talked about this, and you'd be able to take a weapon and say you want to add cold damage to it. You could give your mystic some crafting materials, and he'd go ahead and add, or she would go ahead and add some like cold damage on there for you. And they ended up taking that out of the game, but they definitely want to give players more control of their item stats, and it's something that they talk about in their office quite a bit. And so they gave a few examples here. And so one of the first examples here is they want to give you the ability to change a particular stat on an item to another stat of your choice. So if you had an armor that rolled strength instead of intelligence and you really needed that intelligence roll, perhaps you'd be able to change some of that strength over to intelligence, making that item that's really good but not good for you a lot better for yourself. And another example to give here is they want to give you the ability to augment an existing item with a stat bonus of your choice. So augment, basically add another stat of your choice. So that's going to be pretty awesome. So if you had a ring, say, that had high crit damage, but you didn't get that attack speed roll, perhaps you might be able to augment some of that attack speed on there and make that item a whole lot better. And another one they have here is the ability to create an item with several fixed stat affixes, similar to rare items that were introduced in 1.07. So similar to a lot of those crafting stuff that they introduced, it has a set number of affixes and they can roll between these stat ranges, and they want to give you a little bit more of that. So I think that'll be pretty cool. And they've also designed other socketables. So, or they discussed other socketables. So in Diablo 2, there was kind of three things you could kind of put in the socket. You'd have gems, which we have in Diablo 3 right now, and then you'd have jewels, which were basically like gems, but they'd have a lot more random affixes and that sort of thing. And then you had ruins, which were always a set number of affixes. And basically in Diablo 2, the stuff that was most commonly put in sockets were definitely jewels and ruins, probably most commonly ruins. And then gems were always a good choice, but they were the less ideal choice. So it'd be really cool to see some more socketable items. I think jewels would be a pretty good step in the right direction for that. It would be a lot better to have just 4 or 5 gems, whatever they have right now. I think it's only 4 gems to put in your items, so that's not the best, but I think it'll be really cool to see some other stuff that you'll be able to put in your items. So speaking of sockets, the next question is, where is my add socket? So in Diablo 2, you had a quest reward that you were able to add a socket, and most people use that into a helm. And basically, in game development, they talk about having the blacksmith to have the ability to socket an item. And well, socketing an item always makes the item better, so you pretty much always wanted to do it, and it kind of made it feel like a chore to add a socket to your item, so that's why they got rid of that. And they're still looking to find a way to make sockets a viable way so it doesn't feel like a chore, and they wanted to make it a legitimate decision, so it's going to be a really hard decision, like, do I really want to spend my socket, like, do I want to spend 5 million gold, say, to socket that item, or do I want to like hold off and wait for a better item to socket? So they want to make it some tough decision to make that, to be able to socket, and not just something that you have to do over and over again because it makes the item better. So that's their kind of feeling about socketing items. They definitely want to add it, but they're looking to add it in a way that it feels like it's a hard decision. And so yeah, that's basically what they want to do. And the only thing they have to say other than that is it won't be the same way it was in Diablo 2 or the early versions of Diablo 3. So we got a couple more questions here. We got 2 more. Um, this next question is, will there be new craftable items added in the future? I'm thinking weapons or legendary items. And Wyatt gives an answer here. He says it's hard to say for sure, but I don't see any reason why not. As we revisit items in general, we'll be looking at how crafting fits into the big picture, and it's certainly possible that we want to add more recipes at that time. So we might see some more crafting recipes. I think it would be really awesome if they had weapons, because weapons are basically your main thing or source of damage. All the damage scales off your weapon damage, so having a really good weapon is really important. And being able to craft a really good weapon would definitely bring a whole new thing into the picture, and I think it'd be really awesome. But yeah, that'd be pretty sweet. I'm gonna go ahead and read the last question out here. So you have a plan to reduce the number of items dropping, but increasing their quality. So for those of you who don't know, they were talking about reducing the number of items that drop, but instead of like say an armor rolling 1 to 100 intelligence, maybe it rolls 70 to 100 intelligence. So while less items would drop, more of them would be beneficial for you. So the question, going on with the question, the result, This would result in a smaller number of items that could be salvaged into crafting materials for the blacksmith. With this in mind, do you plan to balance the amount of crafting materials gained from salvaging against the material requirements of the blacksmith formulas? And so Don gives us an answer for this, and he says, yes, we plan to take all future changes into consideration when balancing the number of ingredients needed for crafting recipes. We haven't decided on a number to reduce the items that drop yet, so we can't go into any specifics about this. And along those same lines, we are looking at the cost of which items sell back to vendors, since the recipe or since reducing the drop rate of items will impact a player's revenue of gold. So, you might have less items that drop, but they still vendor for the same price as they did before. So instead of something vendoring for 3,000, maybe they reduced it by, 60% and now it vendors for 10,000. So yeah, that'll be pretty awesome to see. That's about it for the blog. It's to be continued in part 2 after that. So we'll see what they have to say in part 2. I think there was some pretty good information in this blog here. I'm definitely looking forward to some of those low level legendaries to see how they're going to be when they drop from an eye level 63 monster and how viable they will be in endgame builds, because we might see some really cool builds come out because there's a lot of low level legendaries that are pretty awesome. Like a kind of example that came to mind for me is you have the Cane set, and the Cane set's good for leveling, but once you get to Inferno, it's kind of garbage because the stats are just so low on it. It's not worth it. But if the stats were a lot better on it, and you could get a lot of good stats on it, maybe it would become viable to level your guy up to Paragon 100, and you could get a lot of bonus XP on that, and I think it'd be really cool. Anyway, lots of cool stuff like that that'll be coming out. It'll be interesting to see when they implement some of the stuff in the game. Anyway, that's it for me. Definitely leave your guys' comments to what you think about this blog. I'm definitely interested, always interested to see what you guys have to say about this stuff. And if you want to leave some more questions, I think part 2, or no, I think actually the Ask the Devs questions have been closed, and the part 2 will come out when they pick some more questions to answer. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys learned a thing or two. The I meant to say this in the beginning, but the link to this blog is down in the description. So, unfortunately, if you made it this far, you've already listened to me ramble on a bit about this, and you probably don't want to go look at the link down in the description. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.